We are learning the first Sikha on Parshas Vayakhel in Chelek Yud Aleph in Likutei Sichos Chelek Yud Aleph, volume 11. There's a rule that the Rebbe taught many times that Rashi answers every question that a child, like a Chumash Lemikra, would ask when he's learning Chumash. And if Rashi does not address a question that the pasuk that a child would pick up from learning the pasuk, then it needs to be one of two things. Either Rashi already addressed it in an earlier place in Chumash, or the pasuk itself has this answer within the pasuk that will allow us to understand it without even Rashi needing to say this. So today's Sikha begins with the beginning of this week's Parsha, where the Rebbe points out that there's a number of questions in the opening psukim of the Parsha that Rashi does not address and seem to be very obvious questions. So let's learn the first few psukim of the Parsha as you have on the resource sheet, the first two readings. The first pasuk, Vayakhel Moshe is called Das Bnei Yisroel. Moshe gathered all of the Yidden, Vayomer Aleim, and he spoke to them and told them the following. Eila dvarim shatziv Hashem lases oisam. These are the things that Hashem told you to do. Now these things are referring to two mitzvahs. The first one is Sheishes Yamim Te'aseh Malacha. On the 6 days you should work. The 6 days of the week that we have a mitzvah to work. U'Vayoyim Hashvi Yelachem Kodesh. And on the 7th day should be a holy day. Shabbos Shabbosayin. It's Shabbos LaHashem. Kol Yoseh B'I Malacha Yumas. Whoever does malacha shall die. The second thing that be put to death. The second thing that the pasuk teaches us that Moshe told the Yidden is in the next pasuk, the next few psukim. Vayomer Moshe al kol hadas b'nei Yisrael. Moshe told the Jewish people, Leimer, as follows: Ze hadavar shatziv Hashem Leimer. This is the thing that Hashem told us, said to repeat to you. Chum yitchem truma Hashem. I should take from you donations to be given to Hashem. Kol nediv libay. All those that are generous-hearted should bring, if he asks, Trumas Hashem should bring the donations to the for Hashem of Zahav, Kesef, V'Chesef, and Necheshev, gold, silver, and copper, and so on. And Moshe goes on to teach the Yidden about the building of the Mishkan that we've learned in detail in the previous parshas of how Hashem taught it to Moshe. And now Moshe is going to teach it to the Yidden. So the obvious question that we see in these psukim is that Moshe begins gathering the Yidden to teach them about the building of the Mishkan, and he gathers and he tells them first the mitzvah of Shabbos. Why does he tell them first the mitzvah of Shabbos? So Rashi says on that pasuk, Hiktim lehem, reading number 3, Hiktim lehem azar Shabbos l'tzivi melechas hamishkan. He first prefaced the discussion of he prefaced the discussion of the details of the work of the Mishkan with the mitzvah of Shabbos, Leimar, to teach them Shabbos, that it does not postpone the Shabbos, which is similar to what we find in Parshas Kisisa, as we see in reading number 4, that when Hashem told the Yidden about the building of the Mishkan, he also added the pasuk, you should teach the Yidden, you should keep the Shabbos, that for the Shabbos is a sign between me and you for your generations to let you know that I am your God and make you holy. So just as when Hashem spoke to Moshe, Hashem warned him about that Shabbos does not postpone the building of the Mishkan. The Mishkan does not postpone the mitzvah of Shabbos. So too, also, when Moshe taught the Yid in the mitzvah of the Mishkan, he also taught them the laws of Shabbos to teach them that the laws of Shabbos come first, and one cannot build a Mishkan on Shabbos. Which means that the primary mitzvah Moshe is teaching in our parsha is the gathering of and the purpose of the gathering of the Yidden is to teach them the mitzvah of the building of the Mishkan. And the mitzvah of Shabbos is just a detail in this primary mitzvah, which is the keeping of building of the Mishkan. But if that's the case, then what's the first and primary difficulty in this pasuk is that the pasuk says twice that when Moshe gathered the Yidden, it says, he told them, these are the words. Why did he have to say twice, Zeh hadavar, these are the words that Moshe gathered. Vayomer Moshe al kol hadas. Actually, not only the word zadavar, he says twice. Vayomer aleim el advarim. Vayomer Moshe al kol hadas b'nei Yisroel. He says twice that he gathered them and he spoke to them. So the word gathering, actually, I'm sorry, he says once, but Vayomer aleim, that he spoke to them, it says twice that he spoke to them, as if he taught them two separate things. When the whole purpose of this mitzvah is for the whole purpose of this gathering was to teach them one primary teaching about the building of the Mishkan, and the law of Shabbos was only a detail in that primary mitzvah that he's teaching them. So then why does the Torah divide it as if there were two separate amiras, two separate teachings, as if there's two separate mitzvahs going on here? Second, if we look at another question, if we look in the pasuk about Shabbos, it says, "This Eila Dvarim Ashatziva Hashem Lasasaisan." These are the things that Hashem told us to do. None of the other mitzvahs do we really find that Moshe Rabbeinu uses these words la'asaisam, that these are the things that we should do. In fact, most of the mitzvahs, including the next mitzvah, it says, this is the mitzvah Hashem told us, go do. Why does the pasuk add these words, lasais oisam, as this is what Hashem said to do, and then go on to the mitzvah of Shabbos? These two words seem to be extra. Furthermore, not only do these words seem to be extra, they actually seem to be not the proper terminology to use in this pasuk. Lasis Isa means a mitzvah to do something. But this pasuk doesn't speak about a mitzvah asi for Shabbos. It speaks about the mitzvah lois asa. Asher tishmeru sheisham tasmach v'yemshi yelachem kedesh Shabbos Shabbos Hashem kleisu by malacha yumas. It's the mitzvah of not doing malacha, the mitzvah lois asa of not doing any work on Shabbos that the pasuk is emphasizing. So in fact, it's not even a mitzvah of lasis isa. And in the next pasuk, when it speaks about doing something for Hashem, bringing them truma, there it doesn't use the word lasis isa. A fourth question is the order of the pasuk. Why does the pasuk first teach us the mitzvah of Shabbos and then the mitzvah of the Mishkan? If, as we said earlier, the primary mitzvah of this parsha, of this gathering of the Yidden, is to teach them about the Mishkan, then Moshe should add that Shabbos triumphs the mitzvah of Mishkan. But why does he first say the mitzvah of Shabbos? In fact, as we look in Parashas Kisisa, when Hashem spoke to Moshe about Shabbos, in the context of the Mishkan, from where we learned that the Mishkan is not Doicha Shabbos, there, first it speaks about the Mishkan, and then it mentions Shabbos, which seems to be the proper order. And even though Rashi says Hiktim, that this is that he says it first in order to be able to indicate that the mitzvah of Shabbos comes first, but that doesn't. Some Mefarshim say that that's not the simple meaning of Rashi. That not that he said it first in order to indicate that, but that's the reality of how he did it. The main thing is that Moshe said it in conjunction with teaching the Mishkan, as Hashem said it, in order to teach them that it doesn't postpone Shabbos. So the explanation is that sometimes one question can answer the other question. And many times in Sichos, the Rebbe points that out, that when we see a pasuk, a language of a pasuk, this indicates that this may be the clue to the answer. The reason why the pasuk uses the word laseis oisam is because Moshe, the pasuk is alluding to us, that when Moshe taught the Yidden about Shabbos in this context, he wasn't just repeating to them the mitzvah of Shabbos as Hashem told it to him in the context of the building of the Mishkan, as indicated in Parshas Kisisa. But Moshe taught them the mitzvah of Shabbos, repeated to them the mitzvah of Shabbos as they heard it from Hashem and Aseres Adibris, where Hashem said the mitzvahs aseh zocher esiyim HaShabbos, which means the mitzvahs aseh of doing Shabbos, the mitzvahs aseh of Shabbos is, as indicated in Aseres Adibris, not just the mitzvahs leis aseh as indicated in Parshas Kisisa. And that's how, and the pasuk alludes to that by using these words, lasoisam, lasoisam, that the mitzvah of Shabbos is to be done. These are the things, the positive mitzvahs that to be done. Why did Moshe find it necessary not just to teach them about Shabbos, but actually to go back and to repeat to them what they've already heard from the Eibishter and from Moshe Rabbeinu during Matan Torah about Shabbos as was said in Naseres Adibris. Because with this, Moshe was explaining to them why indeed Shabbos is stronger, is a more important mitzvah than building the Mishkan. Although, as we know, the building of the Mishkan is such a central mitzvah of Asali Mikdash v'Shachanti b'Sayich, building of Beis HaMikdash Hashem to reside amongst the Yidden. So for this, Moshe Rabbeinu says the purpose, the reason for this is because this is the mitzvah of teaching us that this is a mitzvah that comes from Naseres Adibris, and Naseres Adibris have a very important mitzvahs to them more than other mitzvahs. In which way? So here's a few things that we've seen by Naseres Adibris that we know that make them important. Number one, as we see in reading 5, by Davar Lekimis Kol Advarim Eila Leimer, and Rashi says, what does it mean that Hashem said all of these words? Melamed Shamar Kadosh Baruch Hu Aseres Adibris B'Dibur Echad. That Hashem said all the Aseres Adibris in one saying, Mashi Efsher Ladam Leimer came, which no one else is able to do. Reminding us, teaching us that even though Hashem went afterwards and Hashem repeated each of the Aseres Adibris independently, the Yidden only heard the first two, and the rest they heard from Moshe Rabbeinu. So even though the Yidden only heard the first two individually from Hashem, but yet at the same time Moshe Rabbeinu was able, and Moshe Rabbeinu repeated the other 8, but the Yidden heard all of the Aseres Adibris in one shot from Hashem. And according to Rashi, they actually understood it, and as explained elsewhere, that they actually understood when Hashem spoke to them. So the first thing is that the importance of the Aseres Adibris is the fact that they heard it directly from Hashem. Second of all, when Moshe Rabbeinu repeated them, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't just repeat something that he heard from Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu was repeating something to them that they heard directly from the Eibishter. Third of all, there was the greatness of the Aseres Adibris, as we know the pasuk says, that Roas HaKailos, that they were able to see the voice of the Aseres Adibris. Whatever that means, and for a different time for Parshas Yisroel, it's certainly a very miraculous way of hearing a mitzvah. Fourth, we know we see Rashi says in that pasuk that we quoted before, also in reading 5, that that the Yidden responded to each mitzvah positively, that they're going to accept it, which means that there was an independent acceptance for each mitzvah of the Aseres Adibris. And finally, the fact that the Yidden did it all together, Nashim V'Taf, we're all standing there, men, women, and children, all there united together to hear the mitzvah of Aseres Adibris together from Hashem, gives it the mitzvah, shows the importance of these mitzvahs. In short, the fact that they heard it directly from Hashem in a miraculous way, and all the Yidden together, show us how important these mitzvahs are, including the mitzvah of Shabbos. And therefore, when Moshe wanted to teach the Yidden what's so important about Shabbos, that it can't postpone the mitzvah of building the Mishkan, which he's telling them how important it was because the fact that it's part of the Aseres Adibris. And Moshe indicates that by using the words, the mitzvah Shabbos is a mitzvah to do, as we learned and as we discussed and we heard from Hashem in the Aseres Adibris. This explains the primary question of the Sikha of why the Torah divides the two teachings of Moshe Rabbeinu to the Yidden about building the Mishkan and about Shabbos into two separate teachings, even though it's really about one mitzvah, the mitzvah about building the Mishkan, and Shabbos is a detail in that mitzvah. Because Moshe, the pasuk, is indicating to us what makes this pasuk, what makes Shabbos so unique. That the fact that it's like a separate teachings. It's a mitzvah miyuchad b'fnei atzma. It's a mitzvah that's unique on its own. A mitzvah that has the uniqueness of being of the Aseres Adibris, and therefore it's considered a more important mitzvah to teach us the importance of Shabbos, and thereby telling us why it doesn't, why it can't be postponed in order to build a Mishkan. Had the mitzvah been said, Eila Dvarim, this is what Hashem said, Za Davar, this is what Hashem said in one teaching, then we would have missed that important element of seeing what the importance of Shabbos is. By showing it in two separate teachings, that teaches us that the uniqueness and the specialty of Shabbos. And here we see how every little detail in the pasuk is exact and teaches us something, and to the point that if we read it carefully, Rashi doesn't even have to tell us and the answers to these questions we can understand it on our own when we look into the pasuk carefully. So to summarize, the question of the Sikha was, why does the Torah divide the two teachings of keeping Shabbos and building the Mishkan into two separate teachings, indicating Vayemen Hashem, Vayemen Moshe spoke to Yidden Zat Davar, this is what they have to do, saying it twice, as two separate teachings, when it really was about one teaching about building the Mishkan, but not postponing Shabbos to build the Mishkan. And second, why does the pasuk indicate that this is a mitzvah lasaisam to do it when the pasuk seems to be telling us about not working on Shabbos, and the two questions answer each other? That the Torah is trying to teach us lasais that this is not just the mitzvah of Shabbos, as the pasuk indicates, of the mitzvah slaisas of not working on Shabbos, but the Moshe also taught them and repeated to them as they had heard the mitzvahs asay of Shabbos, the primary mitzvah of keeping Shabbos, of Zachar Sema Shabbos, to do things for Shabbos, as the whole week, in fact, as Rashi says, as we see in the final reading on page in text 7, that we have to do something for Shabbos. And that way, that's the mitzvah's asay from Aseret Adibris, and Moshe does it this way in order to indicate to Yidden what makes Shabbos so important, the fact that it's a mitzvah that was given to Aseret Adibris with all the uniqueness of the Aseret Adibris as mentioned earlier. The Hiron Avodas Hashem, the lesson that we have, as we know that the Rebbe always emphasized, that everything in Torah has to have a lesson in Hashem, particularly what Rashi teaches us. It's here that the pasuk is teaching us that even though a person could say, I'm involved in something so holy, so busy as building a Mishkan, that it's not important little other things that are going on. As long as I'm building a Mishkan, that is the most important thing. So for this, the pasuk tells us that no, that when you see something that's being done that's wrong, that we have to separate ourselves from something that's asur, that as high and as holy as an avodah, as a service that we're doing, we have to be careful not to chas v'shalom do something that's wrong. And being that doing melacha on Shabbos is forbidden, even in the context of building the Mishkan, so therefore, and you could be doing something as holy as building a Mishkan, bringing the Shekhinah into the world, but when something that's forbidden to be done, as the malachas of Shabbos, on Shabbos, we have to make sure to do them properly, to do everything properly, and to separate ourselves from doing anything that's wrong, despite, and not to give an excuse that because I'm doing something holy, I could do something, it's just something wrong, but it's in the context of a holy thing, so it's probably okay. We have to be careful to make sure that everything we do is in accordance with what the Eibishter wants, and that way is the only way that we can really make the Shekhinah and bring the Shekhinah into this world.